So welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Mr. Brandt Tobler.
Yes.
Brandt, so do I say stand-up comedian is your profession?
Yeah. Stand-up comedian, author, podcaster.
Which one do you prefer, I guess, out of all three of those titles?
Oh, comedian for sure. I
Comedian?
was a comedian first, and then I've been comedian for like 15 years. That's my favorite thing. I wrote a book. I never thought I'd write a book. That just kind of happened. I'm the most proud of the book just because I'm an idiot that dropped out of junior college like 3 times. I never thought I'd write a book. So I'm most proud of my book, but what I am at the core is a stand-up comedian. And then I became a podcaster just because that's kind of what you have to do as a comedian. But I really like podcasting too, but I
Well,
like them all.
it's weird because like comedians back in the day, like you could tell any types of jokes, but like it's weird to see the kind of diverse, I guess, range that they go into now. Like especially with you, like with storytelling, that's one of my favorite forms of comedy, just because it makes it very real and relatable. I guess to the audience member.
Yeah, I started out, Mitch Hedberg was my favorite, so I started writing jokes like pun jokes and like little jokes. And then one time Kyle Kinane came and did a show in Vegas, and he was telling stories, and I was like, this is incredible. And then pretty much the next day I got rid of all my jokes and started working on stories. And I just like the stories better because they're more relatable to the crowd, and I think it's easier to build a fan base because then people actually know you instead of me just doing like a joke. And then people can't steal them, like, even though I don't really worry about stealing jokes, but I don't know, it's just a weird thing. Like, I tweeted just a dumb tweet like probably 2 weeks ago that just said Carol Baskin killed Jeffrey Epstein, and I tweeted it, and then Eric Andre did it today. And then people would be like, "Oh, he stole your tweet," but there's no way he's. I don't know. I don't even know why I'm telling you this dumb shit, but
Well, it's the same thing you come across, like if you're like you see something and just subconsciously put it in your mind, then you think you created it on accident or something. You find out someone
yeah,
else did it. But like
yeah.
let's
That's the beauty of storytelling is no one can accidentally have my story, So that's why I kind of like it. It kind of sets you apart because I think when we come out of this, everybody will be writing the same jokes about the virus or being home or how happy your dog is or how it looks everyone's robbing a bank. I think we're going to get all the same stupid ones. So
it's
I'll
all
be
the
trying
same
to,
things like with toilet paper and all that.
yeah,
Swallow the
yeah,
jokes for you
toilet paper, all
kisses.
that. So I'll be trying to, luckily a lot of weird stuff happened to me out of this. So I'll be writing stories about my life, which hopefully will be different.
Like even when you're talking about like one of your most famous stories, which is, I guess, would you say it is your favorite? I mean, it's a story about killing your dad. Because like I've tried to explain it to a couple of my buddies, and they're just like, "What are you talking about? Like you're worshiping like a psychopath?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. You got to hear You got to hear it. I'm not doing it justice because you go into like how he stole money from you and everything, and at the end you're like, even Ryan Sickler said it best. You're rooting for you."
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably my favorite one just because I got to do it on Comedy Central. And, Ari Shaffir is one of my favorites. And when that show came out, I really always wanted to do it. And that's what I love about Ari. He was so real. He's like, dude, you got good stories, but you're just not famous. Like, and I totally get how it works. So then I just worked and worked and worked. And then one day, I'll never forget, I was in a Chick-fil-A drive-through in Flagstaff, Arizona, and the producer called me and said, "Hey, we want to offer you a contract." I just started crying. So that one's really special to me because I worked on it. At the time, I had left LA and I was living in Phoenix, and I was staying at my cousin's house. And then I'd work on it at night in his garage, and it was hot as shit in his garage. And I just remember being out there in like a shorts and a little shirt, just sweating, just working on it, telling the story over and over into this Zoom till I got it right. Then I'd send it to Comedy Central. Then they'd give me notes and send it back. So I guess that one's the most important to me, even though it's kind of the worst story because my dad sucks. But that one I worked the hardest on, and it's on Comedy Central. It has like I think getting close to 4 million views. So it's pretty cool. Just
I
because
mean,
I
it
never thought that would happen.
it probably had to take a while for you to be able to shorten that down into a story. I mean, you're explaining something that's probably, I mean, I've heard it in full detail on multiple podcast episodes with you explain it for like an hour or so, but you've shortened it down to maybe 10 or 11 minutes. And I mean, how difficult was that to do?
Yeah, that was kind of the notes. They'd just be like, "All right, we don't need this part, or we don't." So it was just cutting, and that's what the key to storytelling is. It's just like writing a joke. you just want to cut all the fat out and try to make it as crisp as you can. And so that's what I was doing in the garage late at night, man. I would go swim. I'd go to the I wanted to learn how to, I mean, I knew how to swim, but I wanted to swim for like a workout. So I'd go swim from like midnight to like 1 in the morning. Then I'd walk home. But then when I was swimming, I would just run the story in my head, because that's what I liked about swimming. Because then I wouldn't be able to touch my phone. So honestly, I'd work on it in the pool while I swam. Then I'd come home and I'd do it. So in the pool, I'd just be like, all right, as I'm swimming, I'd be like, all right, cut out that part, cut out that part. And then, so it's just a lot of cutting out stuff that you don't need, trying to make it as precise and, get the most laughter or emotions out of the story as I could.
You're making an epic joke while you're doing the backstroke. That's pretty.
Yeah.
That's
it
that's some talent right there. I mean, do you have
was,
it?
it was good because I could just zone out, man. I recommend swimming. I need to start doing it again because it was just I'm such a slave to this stupid phone. And a lot of times when I'm trying to get stuff done, that phone gets in the way. So it was really therapeutic and I think good for my body and everything to just get in that pool and swim. And then it really gave me a chance to kind of be creative, which was, I never even dreamed, was a thing when I started doing it.
I mean, that's got to be difficult for you as a comedian too, because you have to rely technically on social media now. I mean, that's the best way to get out there, especially with podcasting too. Like it's all about updating, making sure you're posting every time, staying relevant to people. I mean, it's gave a whole avenue for comedians just to be able to get their content out in general.
Yeah, it's kind of sucks, man, because you have to be on it for work. But I remember like a couple of years ago, I was just kind of miserable with all of it, and I just dreamed of like getting rid of all my social media and just going to Costa Rica and like living in a treehouse and just working at a local market and trying to learn how to surf and stuff. Because I just got it's still a kind of a problem, especially during this. I'm just on it too much, and I know it. I just got to do better with because I just end up in arguing. I mean, I was late to do this podcast because I'm arguing with people on that stupid Facebook. So I don't think it's good for me. So I wish I could distance myself a little bit from my phone.
It just gets difficult too. I mean, especially right the times we're dealing with like quarantine and everything. I mean, everybody's on it. I mean, half the time I always talk about you're scrolling on your phone, not even knowing what you're looking at. Like if you
Yeah,
see someone be like, "Hey, follow my buddy" or something, people will just see the picture, double tap it, and they keep going. They'll never follow the person because nobody wants to read. I mean, I
yeah,
get it. I do a podcast because I hate fucking reading, and practically, if I have somebody on, you're telling me a story, so it's like I'm listening to a history thing, and
yeah.
I get it, dude. It's so strange. Like I try my best to keep it away from me. Like, I mean, it's too big to fit in my pocket, to be honest with you. My
Uh-huh.
jeans are so damn tight, but you know,
That's good.
it's definitely good when it comes to isolation and stuff, but it's helped, I guess, with comedy, especially nowadays. It just feel like at times we definitely need to give it a break.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely need to give it a break, but maybe after this, because like you said, I just have so much nothing going on. I just am trained to just check it, play games, look at Instagram, look at Facebook, look at Twitter, and repeat, repeat, repeat.
Yeah, it's funny because like you were talking about you have one of the stories, the casino story where you hit the pit boss with one of the
The roulette
roulette
ball.
balls. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it was funny because what you said was, all right, so I was like, he's not gonna like me. And then you're probably thinking, why wouldn't I like you? And it's because the first thing you said in one of these podcasts was like, you know who I hate the most? I hate people with a security badge, those security officers. And I just recently, like maybe like a month ago, got a job at a casino. So I'm listening to your podcast and I'm hearing you talk crap and all this stuff on the thing. And I'm listening. I'm like, oh my God, I work at a casino. I'm like relating it to me. So it was so enjoyable to hear too. Cause like, dude, my first day, five people won jackpots. I mean, $150,000 total. And I'm like, I gambled once, won 69 cents, cashed out the voucher, and I have it taped on my wall.
yeah,
So like I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn, maybe I should gamble and stuff. And it's like, no, these guys are regulars. They've lost so much.
yeah, yeah. Wait, you're a security guard now, or you were a security guard when you heard me tell the podcast?
I'm still a security guard there.
Oh, really? At which casino?
Ocean Downs in Berlin, Maryland.
How big is it?
That's relatively big. I mean, it's got its own horse track and everything, but you
Oh,
know,
really?
the hours I work is like the early bird special, I call it. It's like 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it's before all the craziness starts happening.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely have a. Well, I just have like an authority complex, but I'm grown up now. Like, but I'm sure you work with some dudes. There were some security guards that were cool, but those aren't good stories. It's just like it was the ones. that they just always wanted to. They just get a little power. So I had my battles with it, but in hindsight, I was a douche in a lot of those times. I was young and I had a bunch of money on me and I just wanted to show off. So really, there's a couple that deserved what they got, but in all honesty, I'm probably kicked out of like 20 casinos. And if I'm being honest, like 14, I deserved it. I was just a dumbass. But then six of them were just, security guards just wanted to try to punk me, and then it was a battle. But
Well, I have the same thing with authority too. That's where I can kind of relate to you a little bit. Like hearing you talk about it and stuff, I'm like, he's just people are thinking like this guy's just got like a problem or something. I'm like, no, he's doing street justice is what I call it. Because like half the time, like you go to a place, you see some dude that's like Paul Blart, wearing a badge and he thinks he's all this or something, trying to tell you what to do. I'm like, look, treat me like, I would treat somebody. I want to be treated with respect, but like everything's got to be ordering around, people pushing around. And I'm like, that's where I'm like, if you tell me to do the dishes, I won't do them, but I'll do them on my own. But then once I do them, you're like, oh, you did the dishes, but you didn't put them away. I'm like, son of a bitch.
yeah, well, that was my thing. At the time when most of the trouble I got in, I was between like 23 and 28. But then if there was somebody sitting right next to me that was 40 and 48, the way they would talk to them was different than they would talk to me. And I'd be like, hey, man, we're both adults spending money in your establishment. First of all, I'm spending way more money because I was betting so much money for the guys I worked for. But that would just drive me crazy because it'd be like, they would say to him, like, hey, sir, you can't stand here. And then they'd tell me, hey, keep it moving. I'm like, why don't you just talk to me like you talk to that guy? And that's what would always set it off. So there's a lot of security guards that were cool that just treated everybody with respect. But then the ones that were older than me that tried to talk down to me when I got $100,000 cash in my pockets, I would quick to remind them, hey man, I'm not some fucking kid you talk to. Like, I got what you make in my pockets
How
2 years probably.
how do you all right, you got to tell me, how do you get to the point that you have that much money on you? Because like I mean, even when I'm carrying my debit card and it has money on it, I'm a little bit sketched out on it.
Well, it's for my job, so I got the job as a runner. So my job was to run around and bet on sports. So I needed that cash. It wouldn't. I'd try to keep it around like 40 or 50,000, but I needed that at all times so I could run in and make a bet. But I mean, there was times I had $250,000 in cash on me. But you just get used to having it. I keep it because they would give me chips, but I was scared of having the chips because I could lose a $25,000 chip. That could just fall out of my cargo shorts. But $25,000 cash, you're never gonna just drop that. So you just get used to it. Trust me, the first couple weeks, I would just touch it. I'd touch my pockets every 10 seconds to make sure it was there because I was so scared of losing it because I didn't want to go to my bosses and say, hey, I lost some money. So there's really no way. It sucks to try to explain it because I can't even really explain it. It's just something. Hopefully, one day you'll have $100,000 on you and you'll get to feel what it feels like. Because I don't really even know how to explain it.
I
It's a
get
crazy.
scared when I'm walking over by the table games and I'll like just, I'll sit there and kind of stare over, see what's going on. If somebody's like putting some money up or something, somebody puts up like $5,000. He's like, oh, you just lost. And then they pull it away. And I'm like, oh man, sorry you lost. He goes, yeah, that was like 10 G's right there. I'm like, 10 G's.
Yeah,
Holy like, I'm like, oh, I can't believe you just bet that and stuff. And I'm like, if I had all that money, like when you were that age or, maybe 23 or something, I mean, keep it away from me because let me tell you something. You know how much money I spend on Dragon City on my phone? I mean, I'm spending gems like that every paycheck, dude. I would be blowing that money.
yeah. In hindsight, I wish I would have saved it, especially if I knew I was going to become a broke comedian. But we were just making so much money. It wasn't even like real money. I was just always had so much money, and the money's power. I didn't. I grew up in a small town. Before that, I had maybe like $800 to my name, so it was crazy because I'd always keep 10,000 in my front right pocket, and I'd pull that out to buy anything. At the end of the night, whatever wasn't $100 bill, I'd throw in a box, and then I'd restock it, and I'd keep 10,000 in my front right, and that was to bet or to buy. But if I'm at Arby's or something, and they'd be like, my order would be like $9 or something, I'd pull out this wad of money, and they'd be like, we don't take 100, and I just show it. I go, that's all I have, and it was just watching people fucking get mesmerized by that money made my dick so hard that it was just like it just the contagious of showing money just like flexing on people when you're 23, 24 was something. It was just a rush. It just gave me that's what made me feel like I was invincible because when you show that money, people like I said, people talk down to me because I look like a kid. But then when I pull out $10,000, everything changes. Then people talk to me like I'm the fucking most important person in the room, and I love that part of it.
Well, it's like you're finally getting some respect, and people just want to
Yeah,
respect somebody with money. But it's like if you look at all the people in LA, the people that dress like homeless people and have like millions of dollars or something. I'm like, I mean, I'll wrap $100 bill or 20 around all my ones, so it looks like I have a big wad of them or
yeah,
something. But I'm like, it's all about like, you know, you're gonna come across people, and you already know, like, especially like that just have this authority that think like, oh, you're still a kid. It's like, hold on a second. Technically, I'm an adult. When does that change? And then one day you're 60 or something, you realize, oh shit, now I'm an adult and I got my
yeah.
life ahead of me now.
Yeah, that was it. It was just a thing. I thought I was an adult. They thought I was a kid. But then I'd pull out all that money and be like, "Does the kid have $10,000?" And then they would change their tune. But or they'd be dickheads even more because they were mad they didn't have $10,000. One time I worked with this kid. He didn't even work with us, but there was this kid, his dad. They were running this crazy scam where they had like a credit card swiper that would steal your information. And he worked at a dry cleaner, the drive-through. So when you came to get your drive-through, he would swipe your card. So anyway, he's running this big scam. He had all this money, and then one time he got pulled over by the cops, and the cops are like, he had like $3,000 on him, and the cop's like, "Why do you have all this? Why do you have so much money?" And this 17-year-old just looks at this cop. He goes, "Is that a lot of money to you?" And then the cop got super pissed, and he got arrested. But he probably would have got off if he'd have just kept his mouth shut. But just the fact he punked him like that, like, is that a lot of? It's like one of my favorite Vegas stories that he just says, "Is that a lot of money to you?" Like a 17-year-old talking to a grown ass man like that. So sometimes like that, people just there'd be some jealousy, and they'd be like, "Oh, fuck this kid."
Yeah, I mean, I tried my best to try and relate to somebody. I think the only time, like, I think I got pulled over, got like almost got a ticket because I was going like, I guess I was going slower than I was supposed to, which really doesn't make sense to get almost a ticket for. But I mean, I was behind a logging truck, and I immediately thought of the scene from Final Destination 2 where they all start falling off the back. So I slowed down real slow, and a cop just pulls me over. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Did you not see what was in front of me?" Like, that's the whole movie was warning everybody about that. You had Steven Tyler's daughter in there freaking in a car crash. Come on now.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I didn't know you could. Like again, now that I'm grown up and I've learned. But when I was younger, when I was in my early 20s, I didn't know you could just talk to cops. Now, at one time, my friend was getting arrested, and I was walking down the street, and I said, "Hey, man, you good?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then the cops like told me to keep it moving, and my buddy's like, "Man, shut the fuck up!" And he just cursed at this cop, and I remember going, "Holy shit, I didn't know." Excuse me, I didn't know
Bless
you
you.
could do that. And then I realized, oh, you could say whatever the fuck you want. And then, so when I was in my early 20s, I'd do that. But now I realize I just cause you more problems. And I have a bunch of cops that are my friends now. That's another thing about growing up. When you're a kid, you think you want to hate cops. But then I became friends with cops as adults. And that's even better because they can help you if you ever need it. One of my cop friends back in Wyoming, he told me after I became pretty good friends with him, he just told me one time, he goes, "Hey, man, just so you know, you got one call. You can call me one time, no matter what happened, and I got you." And I was like, "That's pretty fucking cool to have." I never got to use it, luckily, but it did
So,
just give me a little. It was a safe feeling because he was pretty high up in the police thing. And then one of my buddies that also knew him said that he used his call one time that he was driving home drunk and he got pulled over and he used his call and he got out of it and everything. And then the cop told him, "Okay, that's it." But I was like, "That's pretty cool." So then
that's
I realized,
that's like Monopoly, dude. You got to
yeah,
get out of jail free card.
exactly. I realized having cop friends, it actually will help you. Where when you're a kid, you think you hate them. As an adult, now I'm think I'm finally becoming an adult. So hopefully I just won't get in trouble anymore. But
Even when you're at all these points in your life, how'd you think that you wanted to be a stand-up comedian? I mean, I've spent so much time, like just going through school, people calling me annoying, telling me to shut up, and then I started a podcast, and everyone's like, "Dude, you're expert conversationalist. Like, you're good at talking to people." I'm like, hold on a second. Don't do that because it inflates my ego. But second of all, like I was called annoying for so long, I never thought I would turn to a microphone.
yeah, yeah, it just happened kind of like. Well, I grew up in Wyoming, but a lot of comedians are like, "Oh, I always dreamed of being a comedian," but that's not. I didn't because it wasn't even a possibility. There's no comedy clubs in Wyoming. There's no comedians to look up to. So I was funny. I was annoying and funny when I was a kid. So like in junior high, I won class clown, and in high school I won class clown in the yearbook and all that shit. But I left Wyoming. I went to Arizona to try to play college basketball. And then when I got down there, one day my buddy, and then that didn't work out, which is, I can't believe a 6 foot tall white guy from Wyoming didn't make it to the NBA. Total waste of my life
I,
working
I,
on that dream.
hey, I heard the episode of the Crab Feast where you were talking trash on beating on any girl in basketball.
Oh yeah, I'll still be any girl, but that's something different. But then one day my buddy is like, "You should be a comedian," and then I didn't know how, so I went and I bought like a book, and I read this book, and then I thought about doing it, but then I would go a couple times. I was like in a hotel in like a conference room where they had a microphone, nobody was in there, and I remember I went and I talked in the microphone just to kind of like practice or be funny with my friends. But when I talked in the microphone, when I heard my voice amplified over the speakers, it made my eyes water. So I was like, I can't be a comedian that just cries. So then I chickened out for like 2 years. And then I moved to Vegas. And then I started signing up for open mics in Vegas. But then I chickened out, said my dad died, all this weird shit. So I wouldn't have to do it. Then eventually I invited like 12 of my friends and I had a couple drinks and I was like, fuck it, let's go for it. And then the first time went really good and then I was hooked. Like I've never done a drug, but I think it's like doing drugs, probably like heroin or something. I did it one time and I was like, oh, I want to do this every day for the rest of my life.
It's funny because I heard you mention that you didn't really like the sound of your voice when you first got up and spoke into a microphone. I think it was similar to me. Like when I edit, if I do edit a podcast, I try and keep it just natural and real. But like hearing my own voice, I have to skip through those parts. Did I start cringing? I'm
Yeah.
like, I can't do this. I can't do this.
Yeah. I've never listened to one of my episodes ever of, I've done a million podcasts my own, or if I'm even on, even like when I got to do Crab Feast or Bert's or Ari's, or like, I never listen to them. I just do them. I don't want to hear myself. And it kind of sucks because I think as a comedian, a lot of comedians listen to their sets after and give themselves notes. But I'm like you. I don't like to hear myself talk.
I mean, even when we're talking about storytelling too, like what stories have you had that like just you haven't found a bit for yet? I mean, like I've had like I think everyone, if you're doing like a storytelling thing, they all got something that they think is like embarrassing or something, but if you turn it into turn it into something like I had a trip when I went to Vegas one time. I was at the airport. My cousin's a diabetic. So I
Mhm.
was carrying his backpack with all his medication and his needles inside of it. Well, as you probably know, through Vegas, there's people that are on the streets there that give you cards with naked women on them, like kind of like
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh cards for adults. But so I was 14 at the time. So we walked by this guy and he dropped a whole bunch on the ground. And I was with my grandma and my cousin's only 6 months behind me. So I'm 14. He's still 14, but a little bit behind me. So I'm stepping on these cards and we're dragging them across the street with our feet so our grandma doesn't see us pick them up. And we were trying to smuggle them back to where we live in Ocean City. And so we had them in I had them all in my backpack, had his diabetic needles in there, and TSA pulls me off to the side at 2 o'clock in the morning. I have no idea what's going on, but they immediately start going, "Why is there needles and porn cards in your backpack?" And I'm like embarrassed. And my grandma's just staring at me like, "What?" And I'm like, "My cousin's a diabetic and he's nowhere around. He's in the bathroom." So like
Uh-huh.
it's a complete thing, but I had to end up throwing those cards away. But like that took me so long to get that into something that I wasn't super embarrassed to talk about.
Yeah, it's just like I tell people always ask me, it's like it's just repetition like regular jokes. And like, so my girlfriend now, like the story comes, it all comes from a real place, but then you tighten it up. Like, let's say something happens and then usually you need the finish. If you have the big finish, you can write backwards. You need the ending and then you put in the details before. But like, for my girlfriend to go behind the curtain, it was good because I have stories about like fucking porn stars and stuff that are more glamorous on stage. And then once we start dating and some of our stories came to life, she's like, "Oh, so most of the story is true, but some of it's not." And I'm like, "Yeah, some of it you have to punch up and make it the funny part, so you're not telling a story like like when my friends tell me a story that aren't comedians, it's awful because they don't know how to tell a story. There's too many long drags and shit." So, for me, when I write a story, like I said, I think it usually starts at the ending. So, like with that roulette ball story, when I throw the roulette ball, that's the big finish. So then I write backwards to the start, and then I write what happened. And then if there's little parts that aren't happened, let's say, somebody didn't say something funny, then I just make them, say something funny. And then So then people are always like, is that a true story? I'm like, yeah, I mean, it is a true story. I did throw the roulette ball. I did that. Is it word for word true? No, because it would be boring. There'd be boring stretches, you know? So that's why I always tell people just, and actually you can tell whatever fucking story you want. It doesn't even have to be true. That's another time. Somebody one time was like, well, it's not all true. I was like, well, who cares? I'm fucking entertaining. Are movies all true or song lyrics all? I'm up here just to make you laugh. I don't, you know, I think sometimes people overthink that it all has to be true. Any of your favorite storytellers are like, you put in, because you could be super funny, but like that TSA in your story, he probably wasn't funny, but you could write something for him to say funny to keep the story going, you know?
Yeah, and it's not, people call it like flubbing or changing little details. I'm like, but a lot of the times, like you tell a story, it's a lot more serious than you think, but then you turn it into a joke,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Then
And
you gotta put the funny in there sometimes because the whole thing is not just gonna be, you know, like I said, if I do a 15-minute story, maybe 9 to 11 minutes of it are really funny, but I got to fill in the other four just to, because there's parts of a story that are important for the story arc, but if those parts are boring, you just got to punch them up, and then that's just, in the end, you're just trying to entertain. So, you know, like I said, I didn't take an oath. I'm not standing in front of a jury. I'm standing in front of a crowd trying to make them laugh or entertain them or get some emotion out of them. So,
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's
most people get it. It's just people, occasionally I deal with it. A couple people are like, well, that's not exactly how the story went. I was like, well, then, yeah, I made it better. That's what we do.
that's a problem with like stand-up comedy too. I started noticing, I don't know if you can kind of agree to this maybe, but it's the fact is like it's a lot of self-deprecating comedy usually if it's going to be jokes, because it's afraid, I guess, to take a shot at anything, because like it's so hard to crack a joke nowadays without somebody getting up and wanting to heckle you. I mean, you probably experienced a wide variety of hecklers.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's a different time. I mean, that's a good thing about my stories. Why I like telling stories again, too, because, you know, I could say, oh, you didn't like that joke? Well, it's my life. Try living it. You know, like before this all happened, I have a new joke, my favorite joke where I say the word retarded in it, and of course people get all triggered, but it's a real story that happened to me with my brother being retarded, and then people, you know, a couple times after shows, people would come up to me and be like, well, you're not supposed to say that word. I was like, well, I don't give a fuck. If I don't say that word, the story sucks. And it's really what happened in my life.
Well, you choose to make it stigmatized when you do
Yeah.
something like that. Like I was watching Mad TV the other day, the old school classic Mad TV, and they said retarded like 6 times.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is this making my ears perk up? And I'm like, that's just the way we've gone today. I'm like,
Yeah.
isn't a joke supposed to be funny?
I'm trying to work on a bit about it now about like the people that complain the most are the people that would fucking give a month's rent to get the office back. I'm like, you love the office. That was full of fucking great I mean, I love the office. It's my favorite show. And I don't think they bring it back now because people would complain, but all these people, I mean, Michael Scott says the craziest shit and I watch it every single day because I love it. It's like, you can't be an office fan and then also be a Yelp fan. Like, make up your fucking mind. If you like The Office, don't run to Yelp if you hear me say one word that you don't like, you know? And that's the thing. It's just, but I think it's coming back around. I think it went too far. I think comedy, everyone was saying whatever they wanted, and it was like 10% bad. And then the society's like, that's way too much. And then they brought it down to like 1%. And then the society's like, well, this is fucking, we're not kids. We can understand shit. So I think it's coming back up to like in the middle. But all the comics I like, you know, they say whatever they want. And that's kind of what I'm shooting for. Like, if you're just pandering, try to get everybody to like you, no famous comedians are like that, you know, like Bert or Tom or Sickler, all the guys I like, you got to take chances. I don't want everybody to kind of like me. I want a bunch of people to fucking love me. And if a few people don't love me in that, well, that's just part of doing business, you know. That
Well,
pandering shit.
it's a deter for a lot of people. Like for me, I mean, I would never 2 years ago, 3 years ago, been able to sit here and be able to talk to you. Just on the fact is, I was always too caring about what people thought of me about putting myself. I mean, you can look through any of my episodes. I have had shit stories. I have had so much stuff that's so incriminating, and I feel bad for anybody that's listened to all of me at once because that's too much of me for anybody. But I mean, I just looked at over. I'm like, wait a minute, what am I going to care about this person that I meet for 5 minutes and then never see again. Like when you're walking around in a store and you're dressing up, it's like, who am I trying to impress here? People are going to like me for who I am. And if they don't, then they don't.
Yeah, that's something that took me, as I grew up, but now I don't really care. I mean, I never want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I can't control if everything hurts your feelings. Like if I make a joke, if your son's retarded, I make a joke about your retarded son. Okay, that's I can see why you're upset. But if I just say a word that triggers something in you, I can't control that. I can't, I can't. I don't know anything. You're just sitting in a crowd, and I can't cater to one. If I'm doing a show for 300 people and two people are upset, but 298 love it, that's what I got to focus on the 298, and then you just got to hope that we're lucky here. Wendy Curtis, who owns our comedy club, is very supportive of the comedians. So that's the thing. You just need to have your upper management support you so you can take chances. Because there is some clubs that don't want one bad Yelp review, and then you have to, they have a bunch of fucking rules and shit. But that's why I became a comedian, because there is no rules. That's what I love about it. So any good comedian, if you tell them not to do something, they'll immediately do it.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing you could do is say, "Hey, Brandt, don't do this," because then there's something in my body from all the comedians that I looked up to saying they're just like the devil on the shoulder, going, well, "You got to do it. You better do it. What are you, a pussy? You're not one of us. You're not a comedian. Don't.
Well,
You're
I've
not
heard
one of it."
I've heard so many comedians talk about like it's so hard because you want to please the comedy club, and then I think I heard you say, like if they're like if you don't take that post down or something, then we're not going to book you, and like you're gonna book me if I get famous, if I get a bunch of
Yeah,
people tweeting at me, so you're gonna book me either less, so stay out of it or whatever, and like I guess we'll stay out of it. I'm like that is the perfect way to be because it's like what's awesome about podcasting is it's basically your thing. It's
yeah,
you have nobody over you, you have nobody taking you and making you go for your control. Like the 31, like I kind of want you to explain that for people that are listening out there because it's one of my all-time favorites. I mean, you think of 31 basically kind of unconventional questions or kind of like
yeah,
weird questions that a lot of journalists or people wouldn't ask.
yeah. So I'm just trying to do something a little different because there were so many comedians with the exact same podcast. So I came up with a thing called the 31, where I just asked 31 questions, and then 25 of them are the same each week. Which are ones like, what's the greatest pain you've ever felt? What moment in life you're the most scared? Who do you owe an apology to? Who in life have you met that made you the most nervous? So I think they're questions that comics don't usually get, and then I do 5 questions individually for that guest that are about that guest, especially if they're trying to promote something. Then I usually do like one audience question. But what I like about my show is that a lot of times I'll ask a question and they'll be like, "Oh man, I've never told this story," and then that's when I know I'm getting good stuff. Where too many of the comedian podcasts are just like, "What's your worst gig?" How do you write joke? Like they don't. There was too many comedians doing the same thing, so luckily mine was a little different. And what I learned is people love doing my podcast because they just get to talk about themselves for an hour and a half. So once people do it, they're always like, "Oh, that was so much fun." I was like, "Yeah, because you just got to talk about your whole life," and which I totally get
I
why
trust
I would
me.
like it
I,
too.
I have 400 episodes, and if you notice, like it starts off a little bit interviewish, but it's very difficult. Like I always tell people, it's a conversation, and it's very few times you'll see someone spin it to where they're asking me things or they're talking to me and making it engaging. Because sometimes I'll sit there and I'll be like, whoa, like this time's going by slow, but it's cool to kind of hear too because sometimes people always want to tell you about what they're doing, obviously,
Yeah,
but it's like it's interesting too because a lot of people like they'll send me a message and the feedback I've gotten from just doing this is the only reason why I still keep doing it. I mean, getting messages from people like I shared it with my family, it was awesome. I'm like, good. And I'll reach out to guests and I'll hear the wide because I reach out to anybody basically, but like I'll
yeah,
get a wide range of people that'll be like, what's a podcast? What are you trying to do to me? You trying to hurt me? Or like, I'm like, well, no, I just want to have a conversation. Like, what's the bit? I'm like, if you look at every podcast out there, there's somebody like, what's the script? What am I doing? Are we, am I a high guy? What am I? I'm like, no, no, no.
yeah,
It's you. Be yourself.
yeah. And some people just can't do that, and those guests are awful. I've had guests on too where I'm feeding them questions, and then I'm just like, oh. Well, the good guests, the time flies by, and the bad guests, it feels like you're fucking stuck in torture. So I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, it's good. Like, I mean, this is what I would always rather do. But you're good at interviewing, so you know how to do it. But so many people don't know how to just keep keep it flowing, and because I don't want to just answer like the same corny ass questions, you know. I'd rather just talk to you like me and you are hanging out. And I think that's the best podcast because then people get to know who you really are. That's why I always don't want people to listen to my questions before because I don't want them to script out answers.
Yeah.
I want them to be like, "Oh, that's a good question. You know, let me think about that." That's when I get the real answers, and then that's why I enjoy it because then I learn stuff about people and hear about their past or stuff. So I actually enjoy 95% of my guests.
Who's probably your favorite guest you've had so far?
Man, oh, I don't know. Like Sickler, I really love Ryan Sickler, and him and Jay Larson helped me so much. And I think Sickler's been on 3 times. I like talking to him. You know, all the famous people like Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura. Like I'm supposed to have Segura this week. I'm really excited about that. But to be honest, I had Brad Garrett. Brad Garrett last week was really good because Brad Garrett's someone I always looked up to, and he,
Helps you write your book?
yeah, helped me write my book. And he just told great stories about. He told a story about, oh, he had to follow Robin Williams. Robin Williams came out and got a standing ovation when he got on stage. Got a standing ovation in the middle of his act. Then got a standing ovation when he got off stage. Then Brad had to go up and do his set. Then he comes off, and then in the back room, he said, in walks Jay Leno and David Letterman. And Jay Leno's telling the club, hey, this is my friend from Indiana. Can he just go on stage? And I was like, stories like that are like, I like asking, my favorite question I ask is who made you the most nervous? Or what was that first big moment in LA or New York when you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm here or around these people? Because I still get starstruck. Like, I think celebrities are cool. Like, I grew up in Wyoming, and I hate people like, oh, celebrities. I'm like, most of them are a celebrity because they're the best in the world at what they do, or they've worked their ass off. So I really like the celebrity stories and shit like that. So, but you know, some comedians just have raw. I like anybody that's like vulnerable. Those are my favorite guests. So I'm at like 225 episodes, I think. So it's hard to pick a favorite one, but I just know my favorite, the questions and like, and just the people that are real. Like one time I had on Pauly Shore and he just didn't want to be there. I think it's the shortest episode I ever had, where his like publicists and people reached out to me to promote whatever he was doing. So I did it. And then he sucked, you know,
It,
like
it
that's,
feels it feels like you're in mud when that happens, man. Like if you look
yeah.
at some of my episodes, if you see one, there's one on there it's like 35 minutes long or maybe 20 minutes long. It's just because I'm sitting there like it's just constantly throwing promotions, and I hear a phone go off in the background, and then he's doing dishes, and I'm like, what the fuck are
Yeah.
you doing? Like
Yeah. So,
give me that attention.
yeah. So it's just people like I remember I did one with Ari. Ari was over 2 hours. Bert was like over 2 hours. The great storytellers are who I like is just someone who, you know, who can tell a story. Cause then I mean, I'm the interviewer, but I like it when I'm just a listener and I'm just like, whoa, that was cool, you know? So, and those are the people I think you should be vulnerable. I think that's how you build a fan base is if you're just really yourself. I
Do you
think
find it
that's what I want to hear.
Do you find it a little bit difficult to be on other people's podcasts? Like when you're on, like I saw you on Bert's podcast, I've seen you on a few. It's like you try not to keep it all onto yourself the whole time. You try and like, like when I hear you with Ryan Sickler, you're trying to give them, questions back and like try and make it more of a storytelling thing total. Like a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people just want to sit there and be like, what's the next question? What's the next question?
Yeah, I don't really like. I guess I don't really try to talk about myself. I'm like I like to interview, so I like to talk. You know, that's a problem. Sometimes I go on other people's podcasts and then kind of take over, just start interviewing them. But I'd always rather hear and learn about other people than talk about myself because I don't think talking about myself. I do that when I'm alone. I talk to myself. I enjoyed. I go for long walks a lot. That's when I talk about myself, kind of to myself. But I'd rather talk to other people because that's how I learn stuff or funny stuff or like I just think I tell people listening is like the best thing you can do. It's the best thing, and it's just easier to make friends. I'm always like I meet people that don't know how to make friends. I'm like all you have to do is listen. You know, so many people they make the mistake of trying to sell themselves. Like, hey, this is why you should like me. I'm like, don't just sit back and listen. Let these people talk. Then that's how you learn about them. Then you have like you build relationships. And you know what? Part of my comedy, one of my favorite things to do is do a callback. You know, if I can call back to something comedy or how I used to get laid when I was single, you just pay attention to what people are saying, then you can call back to it. Like if I was talk to a girl, then 2 days later I remember a cat's name, I was getting laid for sure, you know. Or if I'm talking to you and then tomorrow we're talking again, and then I drop something in, you know, like about the speed limit inside your room or something, and then it's like people fucking love that, you
I
know.
like.
As simple as it is, it's like I've mastered the callback is a great way to be funny, because people are always like, "Oh, you're a comedian, be funny." I'm not like clown funny. I always tell them, if you hang out with me for an hour or two, by the end you'll realize I'm funny. But I'm not like a performance guy. Just over time, I just am like a sniper funny. And to be a sniper, you have to pay attention, because you know callbacks are the key to being a sniper, really.
Yeah, you got to be observant and kind of. I think you
Yeah,
learn more from watching than just kind of talking the whole time
yeah.
too.
Well, yeah, watching and listening. Yeah.
And like, I mean, would you say the 31 was your since that's not that's the first one, but is that your favorite? Like I've heard you do the Craigslist
Well,
one.
yeah, 31's my favorite because I like talking to people, but Craigslist Chaos is, I think, the crowd favorite. And what I like about Craigslist Chaos is it's just always there. You know, I can do it. So for those of you listening to Craigslist Chaos, I just get on Craigslist and I put the words "call me" in the search bar in some random city. And anybody that's dumb enough to put their phone number on Craigslist, I call them and I just fuck with them, try to buy what they're selling, try to get jobs, try to join the Illuminati, try to put a curse, or I like to call. If someone found a phone, I like to call and try to claim it. I just do that. So what I like about Craigslist Chaos is a lot of times I get restless, like I need to be working, and it's hard to get, as you know, it's hard to nail down guests and get guests. Where Craigslist Chaos, there's always idiots here for me. So I really like that because I can produce content whenever I want, and it's always different. You know, what's fun about it is I never know going into it who the hell I'm going to talk to, what's going to happen. So Craigslist Chaos is fun for me, and then I do one with my girlfriend called Dead to Us, and that's just fun because I think my girlfriend's funny, and I like talking to her, and that's more just about our life. So I really love podcasts. It's funny, people are always like, "Oh, there's a million podcasts." I'm like, yeah, but they're fun. Like
Yeah,
I'm a podcast listener. You're either in our podcast or out, I think. So like I probably listen to 3-4 hours of podcasts every day, and some days create an hour or two myself. So I just love it. So I love creating it, and just, you know, like you said, when I get messages from people, it's the coolest thing. People send me, this guy, where's it at? He sent me all this. The lead singer of the band The Offspring made a hot sauce, and they sent me 16 bottles of hot sauce
dude,
the other day.
it's funny you say that because if you look over here, like I got all those bottles of hot sauce. That's all
Oh
from
shit!
people I've just talked to with the podcast, like Jeff Levine from Silk City or Two Angry Cats. Like they sponsor just because
Yeah,
I'm talking to them. They're like some of them are veterans that just were trying to just get it something small batch or something. Next thing I know, I'm telling everybody about them. You know, trying like, hey, I'll try some of your sauce, whatever. I'll promote you if it's good. And then I've created stuff. I have a freaking sub named after me in New Jersey. I got burgers named after me. It's just crazy to see because like there are so many people out in this world that just want to say something, and then when they get it out there, it's like thank you for listening because no one ever takes the time to. And it's like it's so easy to do that, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
it's just it gets lost so many times.
It's so cool. It never gets old when people like send me a message or just like, "Hey, man, my job sucks. I had a rough week. You really helped me." I'm like, that's just so cool to me. Like, it just blows my mind because I never, like I said, I grew up in Wyoming. I never dreamed any of this shit. I'm sitting in my own podcast studio. I'll finish this up and autograph my book to send out to people. I mean, I just sit. My girlfriend catches me sometimes because during this quarantine we haven't been able to work, you know. So a lot of people bought my books just to support. So I'll be sitting there just autographing books, and she'll take a picture of me. She's like, "Why are you smiling?" I'm like, "Cause I wrote a book, and I'm autographing my own book," which blows my mind. For, you know, I used to practice my autograph when I was in 7th grade when I thought I was going to make it to the NBA. So just shit like that. It's crazy. I never dreamed I'd get to do any of this cool shit that I get to do.
I sit there and look at like, you know, I thought about writing a book one time and I was like, what would I put in it? But like when I heard you talk about like how you kind of that like you were just kind of pushed to write this book, and then like you know how you were sitting at Cracker Barrel and talking to your mom and trying to get all the stories about it too. I know that's got to be weird that I know so much about you. I'm not
No, I
stalking you or
love
anything,
it.
I
That's
promise, but
good, man.
it was so interesting to hear, like, because like you finally got pushed to do it, and then you're so happy that it's become now. Like I've heard you talk about it a lot, like free roll, for anybody out there listening, and that's amazing because like I bet at one point in your life you never would have thought that you would have wrote a book.
No, never, ever, ever, ever. I mean, again, it's like, and that's why I tell people, if I could do it, you could do it. If you're watching this and you're thinking about writing a book, just do it, man. I did it all by myself, self-published it. And again, I got the copy. I have it sitting right up here. But the first like copy, again, I'm sitting in a Chick-fil-A. I don't know what it is about Chick-fil-A's, but I'm in Phoenix.
It's that
I
sauce,
remember,
dude. It's that sauce.
yeah, I remember just holding this book and I start crying again, like, I did it, man. This is my book. I did it. And then I sit there going, what if nobody buys it? And I said, who cares? I wrote a book. No one can ever take that away from me. And it's the best thing I ever did. I didn't think I could do it. I just started writing, man. I started, let's get to 1,000 words. Let's get to 3,000 words. Let's get to 10,000 words. Next thing you know, I'm at like 25,000 words. I'm like, holy shit, I got kind of a book here. Let's push, push. Got to like 65, 67,000 words. And I was like, I think this is done. And then, then I did it. And it's like, I'm helping a comic here, not helping him, but he just finished one. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea what's ahead of you. And the best part about it, I never knew this pandemic was going to come. I bet on myself. I wrote my own book. I published it. I put up my money, which I barely had. I called in all my friends to help me with it. Got that book done. I built this podcast studio when I didn't have any money. I put it on 6-month payment plans, but not knowing that one day there'd be a pandemic. And when it happened and everybody else was scrambling, I was selling my book and I was putting out podcasts every single day from my studio because I bet on myself and said, fuck it. I just got to do it, And I didn't realize it till the middle of this quarantine. I was like, I did this shit. I never knew I'd need it, but I'm so glad I just said, I'm going to do it myself instead of, because what I could have done is what a lot of people do is wait for someone. I'm going to try to get it published. I'm going to try to get a book agent. If I was doing that, I'd still be fucking sending out letters, getting ignored, and I would have made no money during this. So if I don't want to make this into a TED talk, but if you're watching, if you have a dream of fucking painting something, book something, fucking go for it, man, because you'll never regret it. I'll
It,
never regret that book, no matter what. If
you,
I
you,
fucking became homeless tomorrow, that book would come with me. I'd use it as a pillow, and I'd sleep better than anybody else because I know that it's my book, man. As fucking
Yeah, you don't need to submit a paper away to get something for your book there, Brand. Because let me tell you something, that New York Times bestseller, every book has that shit, and I can guarantee you half of those are a New York Times
yeah,
bestseller. Like, I
yeah.
mean, the amount I've heard you talk about your book, I'm definitely gonna order a copy. I've been hearing so much about it. I was more interested in the second one that you were talking about. I think you're creating on the way to your first one.
Well, yeah. So I have a second one that's done, but I'm 42. I've always wanted to get married. And I always wanted to have kids, and I have an amazing girlfriend right now. We've been dating about a year and a half, but I wrote this book called You Couldn't and You Wouldn't. And it's 10 girls I had sex with that most dudes couldn't. And then 10 girls I had sex with that most dudes wouldn't. So I think it's a very good book, and it has great stories and funny, but I don't know if I'm going to put it out just because I love my girlfriend and it would be tough. She says she's cool with it, but I don't know how cool anybody would be because I'd also have to then go do a bunch of promotion, and it's about me fucking hookers and massage
Dude,
parlors.
that Dewey Decimal System is missing out. I'm telling you.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. It's done. The book is done. So it's something, maybe it'd be something if someone gave me a book deal, like a large amount of money, and then I could like put a down payment on a house or something. I don't think my girlfriend could argue with that. But in some weird way, like I said, I just don't want to hurt her feelings, and I don't want to be single again at 42 and start this whole thing over. Like I want to marry this girl and start my life. So it sucks because it's a good book too, and I think it'd be very successful. But I can't always make, I'm not in my 20s and 30s anymore where I just do what's best for Brandt. That's how I ended up alone at 40. So
Well, even with all the quarantine going on too, like, has it increased your book sales at all? Or because I know
yeah,
it's
yeah,
probably got to hurt the comedy a little bit too, just because shows
yeah. The
get canceled.
comedy got killed, but my book sales have been, higher than ever. So what I did was right when because I lost a bunch. I lost probably like $12,000 worth of gigs, So then when this came out, I just said, hey, because I saw a lot of comics doing like live shows, which are awful, or doing like GoFundMe's, but I don't want to just ask for money for nothing. So what I did was I said, hey, if you want my book, just send me 20 bucks on Venmo or PayPal, a couple bucks for shipping. And then I autograph the book and I send them 5 stickers from my podcast. And then I wrote them a personal thank you letter. And then I let them pick whatever topic they wanted. And I wrote a joke about it. So, and people, I'm from Wyoming and they're very supportive. Everyone takes care of each other. So a lot of people have bought the book in the beginning, but anyone that hadn't bought the book, I've made probably maybe 10 or 11 trips to the post office dropping off books. I've become friends with the lady. So the book sales have been great. And that's like I said, I didn't know. It just made me just confidence of like, if no matter what happens, that book is something that I think I'm so proud of it. I think it's an incredible book. That book can make me money the rest of my life. So
The feedback has got to be amazing that you're getting too.
oh yeah, everybody loves it. It's on Amazon. It's got like 125 ratings, and I think 124 are 5-star. Just one bitch in Michigan gave it a 3-star or something. I'm like, did you read the book? I try to kill my dad. I'll kill you. But no, it's again, that's the coolest thing is like when I sold it, all my friends bought it, everybody bought it. And then I got the nicest message, which was kind of a backhand compliment, but they'd all be like, I bought your book just because I love you, but it's actually like really good, which makes me laugh because I think what they were saying is like, I didn't really expect much, but it was a really, really good book. So it's cool because most people tell me they read it in one sitting, which is like, which makes me feel like, oh yeah, it's good. So I mean, I know it's good. The crazy part is, so I got Jay Larson. Jay Larson's trying to sell it right now as a movie deal or a TV show. I signed over the rights to Jay Larson for 18 months to try to sell it uh, to somebody. So that's would be a crazy
Yeah,
this whole
it was nuts to me because I heard you on a few podcasts. We're talking about like, oh, I don't know about a movie deal. I don't know if I would turn down a movie thing. I was like, what? Hold on a second. I get it with one of your stories where you're talking about how you broke into Mike Tyson's house. I get with the hangover thing. I understand that 100%. But you have so many good stories that probably have a deeper thing to it where you could turn that into at least some comedy sketches. I mean, there's drunk.
yeah.
If Drunk History did okay at Comedy Central, your stories would do fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's just the thing. It's all luck, and like if somebody, if one of these times they just if I did Rogan or something, there's just so much of this business is luck. But that's what another thing I'm confident about is like when I do pop, I got enough shit to back it up. So like if I pop tomorrow and then I got a bunch of fans, they went to my YouTube page. I have over 200. Now I have the prank calls on there. I have stand up. I have enough shit to back it up. Where like and if I was like a Vine star or something. So I just got to trust the process. I just keep putting out dope shit. And then if Hollywood buys the movie or the book, I mean, that's just out of my, that's just out of my world. So when Jay's like, I believe in it. Do you mind signing me over the rights? I said, sure. I'll sign them over to anybody that can sell it. Cause I don't want to act. I'm not an actor. I just, to see my book become a TV show or a movie would blow my mind. Like I said, I always say in my book, I outdream my dreams. I just want to be a PE teacher and like a JV basketball coach. So I've already done way more shit than I've ever dreamed of. So, but I think it'll happen at some point. But I just don't worry about it because I've had people reach out to me over the years about it 10 or 12 times. In the first 6 or 7, I was like, oh, this is it. And then you just realize you just never know. So
It's like if it happens, it happens.
yeah, so I don't spend a lot of time on it. I trust Jay. I like that it's in Jay's hands, but I tell my girlfriend all the time because she got excited about. I got a big email one time from like the head of one of the biggest agencies, the head lit director's assistant, saying somebody wants to buy the movie rights and all this. And I just started dating my girlfriend, so I showed her to impress her. And then we both got all excited, and then they're like, then they come back and forth, and then they just disappear. So now when these offers come in, I just go, okay, cool. When you need me to sign something for some money, let's do it. But I'm
Yeah.
not going to, I don't know anything else about it. I'm
Until
just,
something shows up. It's the same
yeah,
thing you probably get from all the people on Craigslist. They're like, well, show me the money first when you want to go meet them and go
yeah,
buy a cat somewhere or something.
yeah, yeah. Just when someone's got the money, I'll be ready. But in the meantime, I just, whatever's supposed to happen is gonna happen. I'm just got to keep doing what I can do to just create the content I can, and then hopefully it'll happen or it won't. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I believe in you. The book too, from what I've heard through all, like, just learn about you through podcasts and listening, especially yesterday's episode. I think of the Craigslist one uh, that you put up. That was nuts. And I have to ask you, when did you discover Craigslist was crazy? Because for me, I think I was like in eighth grade, and we had the classes with the computers in front. So our teacher was like, "Don't go on the computers," but of course we're going on the computers. And some person put up Craigslist, and there was an ad for a guy seeking men under the age of 20 to punch him square in the nuts. And I thought the kid was joking, and he showed me, and it was a dude's sack he had on the screen or whatever. And my teacher walks by and goes, "There's no way that's on the internet." I'm like, "Dude, this isn't a legit guy that wants you to come by and hit him in the nuts."
Yeah, it was something probably I think in high school or somewhere when it came out. It was the same thing. People would be like, "Yo, you got to see this," and then I was like, and it was like that missed encounters thing got a lot of press, and then I just it was just something, especially in Vegas. So then I started to use it. Like I started buying tickets off there because there's a lot of scams. But if you have any street smarts, I can tell what's bullshit and real in like the first 30 seconds. So you can actually get pretty good deals off there if you're not scared to use it. There's just so many people that are scared of like the problem is the scammers on there are just fucking low level scammers. They're idiots. So I started using it for I think tickets, and then I just had that idea one day when once I figured I could take phone calls, I was like, man, I'll just go fuck with these people, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, that's what I really actually respect about you too, is because like you talked about breaking into like a lot of like games, and you try and push yourself to do it to like a stadium game or something. And I'm like, it's just having the confidence. That's all it
Yeah,
is. Like, I've snuck into movies so easily. I've just act like if you act like you're supposed to be there, then nobody bats an eye. But the problem is when you start acting all nervous and trying to do a bunch of things like, oh, you see, I got this that's signed by the president to get into here. It's like, all right, now I know you're just bullshitting me.
yeah, yeah. It's fun, man. It's a harmless crime, and like it's the only way. From it's like I just love the adrenaline rush of it. I love the cat and mouse game. I just like to try to win. I'm very competitive, but now as an adult, you can't really compete, like so it's my way of like, all right, let's see who's gonna win today. And I like to win, and there's no cooler feeling than sneaking in somewhere and like, oh, I did it, or like in the heat of the moment when you're trying something and then you're like, oh, here we go. And the thing is, people are like, aren't you scared? I'm like, there's nothing to be scared about.
I'm just gonna say no.
If they catch you, they're just gonna say you gotta go. Then I go to the other side, try to get in. It's not like you're gonna go to prison. People are like, what if you get in trouble? I was like, trouble for what? They don't have enough room in jails for like drug dealers. You think because I snuck into a college basketball game, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life in prison? Like they're just gonna be like, half the time it'd be a great story anyway. I'm in the content business. I tell my girlfriend I got to make bad stories for work. I mean, I got to make bad decisions for work. If you want me to do something crazy for a podcast story or a story on stage, we got to take some chances.
Have you ever used a joke that might have been like something you observed from somebody like watching? Like I remember one time, like I had this thing I tell my friends, my grandfather out of nowhere tossed this burn at me that actually hit deeper than I think anybody in high school has ever cracked a joke on me. But my name is Robbie, and my grandmom has a stool named Robbie. And I was like, "You have a stool named Robbie?" And then my grandpa just goes, "She also has a toilet named Robbie, and both you and the toilet are full of shit." I just looked at him like, what the hell was that? And he's just like, like messing like ruffles through my hair and stuff. I was like, I didn't even say anything to you. Like, I'm upset with you.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, sometimes if like a non-comedian friend says something, it's rare, but I'm like, oh, that's funny. I can make it into something. What usually happens is regular people say a bunch of dumb shit, and then they say, oh, you can use that in your act. You can use that. I'm like, no, I'm not. That's what really, for every one thing that someone says that I actually can incorporate in my act, there's at least 99 people tell me something stupid that they think I should use in my act. But you just get used to it as a comedian, that those are the two like annoyances is when you tell someone you're a comedian, they all say something funny, which we hate, or they'll do that, in the next 2 minutes, they'll say something and you'll give them a courtesy laugh and they'll be like, you can use that in your act. You should. And they're like, ugh,
It's not
I'll
that good.
pass. Yeah,
I,
no, I'm
I'll,
just trying to be
I'll, I'll
nice.
put it in the piggy bank. Let me
Yeah,
hold on
thank
that one.
you. But I'll write my own shit.
It's crazy too, because like even when I reached out for you to come do the podcast and stuff, like I always hear comedians always talk about like it's hard to do like an AM radio type thing, and like you do. I mean, I listen to them. My parents work for a radio station, so I'll listen in the morning to like a radio talk show, and I got an offer to do it at one point, but I was like, it's not for me because the scripted questions is just too much bullshit. Like I can sit there
Yeah,
and listen to I heard Bert, I've heard Tom Segura on morning radio down here, and it was so fake. I'm listening to it. I'm like, this guy that's talking to them doesn't even know their name properly, doesn't know any of the jokes that they're talking about. Like, I wanted to call in so bad to Tommy Buns and just start screaming at him a bunch of YMH references or something. But it was like, I was like, it's really strange. Like, nobody ever just takes really the time and just wants to ask false questions. I'm like, just get into that shit, dude. Just,
yeah.
talk to the person.
Well, podcasts have really ruined the morning radio because you can sit here and talk about whatever we want. Where then if I got to go on there and then they don't know my name and they feed me, it's just like, and for those guys, they're already sold everything out. Like if I became a famous comedian, that'd be the first thing on my rider. I'd be very low maintenance, but I'd just be like, I'm not doing morning radio because I don't want to go in at 6 in the morning, especially if my show's already sold out. That's just to try to sell tickets. That's for people like me. Like I have to do morning radio to try to sell more tickets to try to hit like a bonus. But if I was Tom or Bert, I'd be like, no Sunday shows and no morning radio. Because what sucks is well, those guys are so famous it doesn't matter, but you'll do a weekend at a club, and that Saturday night, those shows are usually the best. So you'll do two shows, you'll feel so good about yourself. And then Sunday that's usually the worst. So it's like, I would just rather do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, feel so good about myself, fly home Sunday, watch football, and then not do a Sunday show. And that's what you'll see like most of the famous comedians do. They just got rid of the Sunday show. Just get back home, spend time with your family or watch football and then go into your week. But
Well, you strike me as one of those people that even if you became like where you don't have to do Sunday shows and stuff, it seems like you would always still want to keep on grinding. I don't think you've ever
yeah,
really stopped.
no, I'd definitely keep grinding. But at that point, I would be like, I just wouldn't. Well, I just love football, honestly. But 3 days on the road is like good. 4 or 5 is like that's the only thing. Like the first time, I mean, I've been on the road for 10 years, so the first time through cities, it's fun. But the third, fourth time, it's just not that cool. So I would be like, and especially if I had a family and a wife and a kid, if you date a comedian, you sacrifice a lot. So I would like to grind and make more money so I could buy shoes and shit or whatever. But at this point, I would come home and try to help, especially if I had kids and stuff. I would be like, and the thing is, you can grind from home now. I mean, those guys they make more money off their podcast than they do their stand up. So I think they fly home Sunday to get ready to record Monday, Tuesday. This whole thing, the whole dynamic of stand up has really changed. Like it's a podcast world, man. Joe Rogan changed all of this.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite part about going on the road and just doing stand-up shows? Like, do you like to travel to go all the different places?
Well, just to stand up. I just love doing stand up. The travel. I mean, it gets old. It was when I was young. It was cool. I loved planes. But growing up in Wyoming, I didn't get to fly anywhere or anything. But the best part is, I don't know. I like the staff. I like just people, man. I'm a people person. I like meeting people. You know, I like hanging out. My favorite, if I do Sunday shows, what I like is on Sunday, usually you've kind of built a rapport with the staff. And then on Sunday night, you guys all go out as a staff and drink and have fun. So I like that. I just like being around in a comedy club, being around comics. And then, of course, doing stand up, which technically is my job, but as like corny as is to say, it's not a job at all. It's something, when I was in high school, I always tell this when a guidance counselor says, if you find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I was like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard until I'm living it now. Like I would give anything to go to quote unquote work tonight. It's so just the rush of the show is like, and just being in a new place and all that part's the good part. It's just the loneliness of being on the road is that just gets rough. It's just hotels suck. And let's say you're in like Dayton, Ohio, and it's snowing, and you come in on a Thursday, you leave on Monday. You're just like, you just sit in this hotel room with like 12 channels, and you tell yourself you're gonna be productive, but you just watch porn and fucking you do
You,
nothing.
you got that like extra layer of gross, I would say, on top of your skin. Like, you spend the night in the
Yeah,
hotel. If you don't take a shower, you're walking out
yeah,
like, I
man.
feel dirty.
You put the do not disturb on for 3 days, and you just fucking you eat pizza in bed. And I usually get like two queen beds, and one I like eat in and one I sleep in, and it's just the boredom of,
Are you talking
like I
about
said,
eating in the bed? Like you actually eat in the bed?
yeah, just sit in one bed and eat and lay there and watch.
Dude, I worked at a hotel, and let me tell you something. We have these college kids that come down for spring break, and somebody slept in a bed with pizza, like all over the inside of the sheets,
Oh,
like it
for
was all
sure.
in there. I was like, bro, like, how do you get that hammered?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I eat in one bed, and then all the crumbs go wherever, and then I sleep in the other bed. Because in the early days when I only had one bed, I'd make that mistake. I'd come home all drunk, and then I'd eat my food in bed, and I wake up with like crumbs all over my body. Like, so then I learned.
Who are you, King Henry? Holy crap,
Yeah.
you got a bed separate for eating.
Well, no, they're not good. They'll either give you like a king or two queens. That's my. So I'd rather just have two queens. I don't need a king size bed.
Do you have a special tradition that you do, at least when you're doing before you do like a stand up or before you do maybe go on the road or something?
No, not really. Like whenever I get on a plane, I tap the side of it and rub it. That's like the only like good luck charm. But before stage, I usually have a drink or get a drink. But I don't really. I tried to incorporate it, but then I just nothing ever sticks. So I just go like. I think I lost all my superstitious stuff when I was like gambling in Vegas because I'd have like songs or I'd drive certain ways to casinos that I thought would help me win. Then over time you just lose and you realize none of that shit works. So I think I broke myself of any like superstitions because I tried to have so many superstitions when I was gambling to try to make more money.
Do you have any plans for once the quarantine's over with? Anything you're trying to really go and do? Are you gonna maybe push your book a little bit more?
Yeah, probably my book, and I think I'm trying to put together a tour. I just want to go to the club, I haven't drank this whole time, which is crazy. I'm like 35 days sober, which is the longest I've ever been since I was maybe 18. So I know the first night I'm gonna get fucking hammered. I'm
It's a
gonna
good
take my
thing you
girl.
said you loved your girlfriend because if you haven't noticed, a lot of the quarantine problems is that domestic violence is going up
Yeah,
because everybody's
yeah,
stuck in the house with everybody.
yeah. No, my girlfriend's great about that, and it's been good to have this, the podcast studio. So right now she's up playing with the dog or doing shit, and I can come down here, and so we have two different worlds where we can separate. But no, I trust me. I know a lot of people aren't going to make it out of this, but the first night we can, I'm going to go take my girlfriend to my favorite place to eat, this Russian spot across from the comedy club, and then I'm gonna go to the club and just get annihilated. I'm sure because my tolerance is gonna be so low, but I'm just gonna be so happy to see all my friends again because I just miss. The best part of being a comedian is just sitting around fucking with each other and busting balls, and that's what I miss the most. Because my girlfriend, she as great as she is, she's eventually like, okay, enough with your fucking jokes. Quit busting my balls in
Yeah.
the kitchen. I'm not a comedian. Get out of here. So that's what I look forward to the most is just being around the staff at Comedy Works here who have become like my closest friends and then all of my comedian friends and just getting back to normal, man. That's what I miss. And then of course I just want sports to come back. I love sports so much. So I just really want everything to be back to normal.
Everybody's going to talk about like this new normal that's going to happen, walk around masks. And I'm like, that'll probably happen for a few weeks. But look, I've been hit by a jet ski. I've had a near death experience. So I know there's 2 weeks after that experience where you're like, God is beautiful. Love is great.
Yeah.
All these amazing things. It goes away and you're going to be right back to yourself because that's just how we're set up. All right.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I plan on people like, what are you gonna do? I was like, I'm going back to living my life as soon as I can. Like, I respect what we have to do now, but I hate every second of it. And but the second they tell me we can go, I'm going. I'll be. I'm gonna take my chances if they say we can go. But I'm just gonna. I just miss my. I mean, I just miss my friends so much. Like, I'm just a people person. I guess that's why it's easy for me to not drink is just because I guess I'm just more of a social drinker. I like to be around my friends and drink. So I have no temptation to drink at my house, but I know the second I get in that bar with my friends, oh, we got a lot of drinking to make up for.
I'm just ready for stuff to come back on the shelves. I mean, down here, like you want to say, talk about toilet paper jokes. Like I've been eating cans of tuna for 20 something years. Like I'm a fitness freak, and next thing you know, like there's no tuna on the shelf. There's
Oh,
nothing
really?
there. Everybody's taking all that, and it's funny. I walk down the cereal aisle, and all the sugary cereals are gone, but all the healthy ones are still up there. I'm like,
Yeah,
a freaking pandemic can happen, but nobody still wants to eat healthy.
that's the truth. We've been lucky. Well, we're gluten. I got a gluten allergy, so we're gluten free here. So plenty of the healthy stuff's there. But we live right downtown, and there's a Target a couple blocks away, but there's no real parking. So we've been super lucky. Nobody really goes there, so we've had no problem. We got everything we've ever needed. We've actually been, as shitty as it is to say, we've done really good during this. I've made a ton of money. The show's been doing good. I've been able to get whatever guests I want. And my girlfriend like needed a break from work, so it's not a popular opinion, but we've actually been doing really, really good during this.
It's just, I mean, I always got lucky. I had money saved up and stuff too. And then like when everyone got that kind of stimulus check that came in, but like so many businesses are getting hurt from it too.
Yeah,
And it's
that
just,
part.
yeah, it's like, I'm pro mom and pop shops and stuff. So I see all these places that like, my gym owners, like they just bought this gym and the next thing you know, they have to close their first week. So it's like they're hurting. They got 5 or 6 kids. So it's hard for them to be, shut down for so long. And I look at it, I'm like, it's, it's going to get to a point like what's happening now. Like we're having a bunch of businesses that are just planning on opening up without even going
Yeah.
by the law.
Yeah, we've been trying to support everything that's local right here around the house. We go to Target to get the shit that we can't. Like we've been eating a lot of meat, so there's a butcher right down the street, and I was so proud of my hometown. There was a donut shop that they posted the other day that they were struggling and they needed help, and my city Cheyenne came through to the point where most of my friends waited in line 2.5 hours just to buy donuts and save this business, which I was so proud of. Like, so I think it's coming around. I know Denver's good about it. Everyone's tried to support as local as they can. So I'm hoping everybody survives, but unfortunately, some people just aren't going to, and it really sucks.
Yeah. When this thing's over with, you're talking about going out and get a drink with your friends. What's one food place you're going to hit up?
Yeah, I'll hit up. Like you said, there's this Russian place right by the comedy club that does these lamb chop lollipops and incredible Brussels sprouts. So I'll go there, and then I'll go back to Wyoming, and my favorite restaurants there I'll go to, and I'll just we'll probably eat out a lot since we've been eating in so much. But all the restaurant there's a bunch of local restaurants we like, so we'll hit all those, and then the couple bars across the street from the comedy club where our friends are bartenders there. That's the thing. It's just like close knit family, right, where we do comedy. So all of us will just drink and hug and be happy together. It'll be what I look forward to the most.
I'm stoked when Honey Smacks finally gets up on the shelf. I don't know if you heard, but Honey Smacks had like a giant salmonella outbreak in like 2018 or something. And I bought a box. I'm very frugal with my money, so $5 for a box of cereal is that's an expensive purchase.
Yeah.
So I bought this box of cereal, and I came back the next day after being severely sick after eating this cereal. And I've
Oh.
noticed that iceberg lettuce and Honey Smacks were all taken off the shelves, and I asked why, and it was a salmonella outbreak. And he's like, if you bought a box yesterday and you got sick from it last night, then you should throw it out because it's got salmonella in it. I'm like, I paid $5 for that box. I'm eating the whole damn box. I got sick every bite, but you know what? I finished it, killed it.
That's crazy.
Said you live by the smacks, you die by the smacks, man.
That's funny. Yeah, I've been eating a lot of cereal during this.
It's one of them guilty pleasures. I'm telling you that, and Netflix is probably killing it right now.
Oh yeah, we watched a great show last night. This show called Operation Odessa. I don't know if you have heard of it, but I
Never heard of
recommend.
that one.
Like an hour and a half, fucking incredible show where the mob tries to buy a submarine, and these guys try to take off with the mob's money. It's really good.
I was recommended to watch Tiger King, and then I watched Tiger King, and afterwards I was like, what? Like, what? Okay, I already knew that tigers, and apparently in Texas, there's no law against having tigers, so there's more tigers in Texas than the wild of all the world. I knew that, but I was like, this is freaking nuts. Like this is like I'm watching Jersey Shore mixed with like people on crack.
Yeah, that one was crazy. I love Ozarks. That's the first thing I watched. I watched the Michael Jordan documentary last night. It was great. We love 90 Day Fiance at our house, so we've been watching a lot of shit.
It's definitely a good time for Netflix too. And I mean, even with all the free time too, like I really appreciate you
Oh,
taking the
of
time out
course.
of your day too, man, to be able to do the podcast.
Of course, man. Thank you so much for having me. Any time, man. I trust me. I just love human interaction right now. I love just sitting here bullshitting with you. It's a lot of fun.
And I'm gonna make sure I put all your links and everything in the description too. But if you want to tell people a little bit about the podcast and your
Yeah,
book too, where they can order it.
cool, man. You can. My podcast is called The 31 with Brandt Tobler. You can get it anywhere: Spotify, iTunes, all those places. I'm putting out one pretty much every single day. So once you listen to all your favorite podcasts, come see me. I'll be there with new content. My book's called Free Roll. It's available anywhere: Amazon, Audible. I read the Audible version, which is my favorite part. 6 hours of me telling the stories, I think, is really cool. If you like Audible, if you want a book, you can just reach out to me on any social media, at Brandt Tobler, BRANDT TOBLER, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you want one, you can just send me some money, Venmo, PayPal, and I will mail one to your house with a joke for you. And I have a bunch of dope stickers and an autographed book. And that's it. Come see me live. I'll be on the road again at some point. So hit me up, and I'll leave you free tickets pretty much anytime.
That's what I really like, that you're always like, I'll give you free tickets. Don't break into my show or something. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
look,
I
I'm
got
going to have
you.
to order a book from you and get a little heart written in there for me.
I'll send you a book. Don't worry about that. I appreciate you having me on. Just send me your address. I'll send you one tomorrow.
Right on. Thanks so much for listening to this
Yeah.
episode of Out of the Blank podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode.